I basically call myself like a lifelong learner. So I think because of all the processes that has happened throughout my life and what I learned throughout my life has made me what I am today, which is basically like an early career researcher who is working at University of California as a postdoctoral scholar. I'm also a first generation PhD, and I'm a STEM educator as well as a mentor. I mentor students extensively from all over the world. And basically, I'm mentoring these 21st century learners so that they can learn more about what I was not able to explore when I was growing up during my academic journey as well. I advocate extensively about diversity and inclusion as well as women in STEM. So I'm working actively in women in about women in STEM, promoting women in higher STEM careers through one of the programs that I co-developed, Kalpana with Vigyanshala, as well as through interdisciplinary learning that I'm trying to promote through BioExpace. I come from Delhi. I have done all my education, my schooling in a government school from Delhi in Rohini, and after pursuing my education, elementary education and high school education, I went for college in Delhi University because of the merit that I had, but that was not actually my first dream to do that. But eventually I learned over the journey that how I have to turn my failures into opportunity, and I think that made me what I am today. When I was growing up, my father and my mother we come from a middle class family, and for my father, it was really the only thing that can change our situation or how we were living in a one-bedroom apartment, and everything that could have been changed was just by means of education. So he always inspired me to go ahead and educate yourself, become what you want to become in your life. And it was still since childhood that has been instilled in us, in me and my sister. So we were two siblings and there was no boy in our family. My mother was many times have been raise this particular issue in the family that why you don't have a boy and what you will do with two girls. And but my father used to always say that my girls are more than the boys that any family would ever have. So when I lost my father when I was growing up during my high school, at that particular moment I had just this one particular he used to say a lot of things, and this is one of the saying that like stuck to me over my career and my journey, that education is the only thing that will open doors to you and will make you stand in any kind of circumstances that might come. So I kept on educating myself, and my sister did the same, apart beside whatever kind of circumstances, socioeconomic circumstances, or how should I say, the societal barriers that we were facing at that particular moment, like where you're not supposed to go for a co-education school, or probably you need not to take higher education because you don't have a male member in your family. So these kind of things where my mom really stood the ground and inspired me to be bold and take the decisions in your life, inspired me further to take every kind of challenge that may come forward, but do continue your education, because this is the only weapon that you have in your hand, and nothing else can make you achieve your dreams. So my father was a clerk in a hospital, and he was in the administrative side of the department. When I was very young, a third grade student, I used to visit his office. There I got to see various sides of the hospital. Obviously, my father was working in the administrative department. Then I got to see the hospital side where there were doctors, and I was very fascinated with all the charts and everything that were there on the wall, always looking at those. Like they show you the respiratory system inside, and if it is a tobacco related picture, then you can see people get disgusted by these particular images. But I was particularly intrigued after seeing like how people first of all get these kind of things that happen to them. I did not know at that particular time it is a cancer or something. But then I got to see the brain, because there was one friend of my father who was a neurosurgeon, and I got to see that the brain models in the brain chart. And it really intrigued me, like how people can come to one particular place and get the treatment for everything that they want, and that one person who can treat them and help them to have a healthy life is a doctor. So I always wanted to become a doctor because I was very fascinated by the biology, human anatomy as well while I was growing up. And eventually when I decided to become I decided like long back in my life, a career for myself, that I will become an MBBS doctor. I wanted to become a doctor of medicine, specifically a neurosurgeon. But when early in my life, when my father passed away, I was more focused towards securing finances for my study as well as tutoring other students and everything. So I was not able to focus on my own studies at that moment. And I ended up not being clearing MBBS exam, but the science about which I was very passionate, and I really wanted to pursue my career in that. I went ahead and pursue my bachelor's from Hansraj College, which eventually led me to this particular path. I did not know even that I will turn out to be a scientist at some particular point, but that happened along the journey. And that happened because of the peers and the mentors that I had on the way, which showed me the path that there is another thing that you could do in your life, which might not be called a doctor of medicine, but you can become a doctor of philosophy. So this is what further intrigued me to know the science behind the facts that I was always learning and just cramming. So I am particularly, right now I'm working as a neurodevelopmental researcher. I am working on the diseases like Jobber syndrome, which particularly affects children at a very early age. This is a genetic disorder. I am trying to underpin the mechanism behind the proteins which are involved in the cancer as well as neurodevelopmental disorders. Earlier, I have extensively worked in infectious diseases as well, but my childhood dream was to work towards neuro sciences. So I ended up to do my postdoc in neurosciences. When I was growing up at that time, and after 12th standard, when you appear for these MBBS exam where the whole India is appearing, approximately 2 million people sit for this particular MBBS exam. And when you are not able to secure that particular position, maybe because of the finances that you didn't have to get the tutoring or the extra education that people prepare for these competitive exams with, at that time, I felt like a complete failure because that was my childhood dream. This is something that I always wanted to do and always imagined myself to become a neurosurgeon. But when I was not able to clear the MBBS exam at that time, when I got into the I got the dental, but I never wanted to become a dental doctor. So I went ahead and enrolled myself in a particular course, which is BSc Life Sciences, which is quite an interdisciplinary course where you are not basically getting one particular, not becoming an honors into a particular subject. And why I wanted that, because after that, I was not sure that what I want to do in my life, because at that particular moment, I did not know what other careers, pathways are there, what people can actually pursue to have their career in science if they really love biology to this extent, the way I used to do. So, but I knew about researchers and I have read about them in my books when I was reading about DNA helical model, double helical model, and how the discovery of DNA has been done and everything. It inspired me always throughout the journey. But at that time, I didn't know how to become a researcher. I always thought these are certain set of people who probably take science to another level in a certain way, that they end up discovering something and become researchers like that. So it was only during when I was a teacher and I was teaching the students. I did my Bachelor of Education after BSc, and I started teaching students in the school. And the questions that they used to ask me further made me curious. And at that particular time, I literally started thinking like this cannot be the career that I imagined for myself. I cannot restrict myself just to become I loved teaching always, but I do not want to become a teacher for my life. That cannot be my career, because I further wanted to investigate and learn more about science every day. And this really helped me in finding further resources, in searching, talking to people, what can be done after this, how can I actually become a researcher. Then one of my uncle's friend, he told that you can pursue a PhD. And after that, I think I'd never looked back. I was thinking like, what is PhD like and what people do? And I tried to find all the resources that could help me in securing a PhD, and that to a fully funded PhD from Singapore. So before doing my PhD, I did masters in bioinformatics from Jamia Millia Islamia University. And there, that was the first time I was actually learning how to code. And that was the first time I learned how to do programming. And this is one of the milestone that I believe is for myself, that the girl who never actually learned computer in high school even and never did computers was learning and coding and writing programs in bioinformatics. And eventually, all those things, the determination to learn more, and I, as I said, I'm a lifelong learner and I wanted to learn more. So I ended up doing programming and I secured the gold medal in bioinformatics at that particular in MSc. So I was a university topper, which I was never ever was during my whole life. So that happened only during my masters. And when eventually I secured this gold medal, I was like, I can be now anywhere. I can do any kind of PhD in any field, because proteins were something that were really intriguing me. I wanted to see these biomolecules, which were so tiny and which cannot be seen through the light microscope. And I wanted to see to that atomic level detail, because I knew that whatever I can see under a microscope, like an onion cell, probably is the maximum light microscope can reach. So I wanted to see what is beyond that and what is at the atomic level. I applied for PhD in India. I I interviewed for IIT Bombay, and after that, eventually somebody told me that why are you just doing applying in India? You can also look for abroad. Then my mother told me that we do not have that kind of finances, and you cannot go for something like that. But I then when I was searching, I got to know that you can do PhD in biochemistry and structural biology, where you get to learn about these tiny biomolecules, which are making people have Alzheimer's, making infectious diseases, as well as also causing, like, making the viruses and bacteria active to actually sustain in the dormant form inside a human being. So I really wanted to know more about these. So when I was looking, I was interested in infectious diseases. I looked for the labs around, and then the friend who, like extended the uncle's friend, he mentioned about Singapore. I applied there if you really want it, and that happened, and I was able to secure the PhD in NTU Singapore, where I studied about mechanistic insights into the tuberculosis bacterium, which is one of the deadliest infectious diseases even till today. And like around 1.4 billion people are dying from this disease every year. So I went ahead and studied about the dormant form of this bacteria. And I got to study the protein for which there was no structure available so far. So that was the first structure that I published for this particular protein from Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So I feel that I achieved something, and I was able to see that molecule. That was something really fascinating for me. So bacteria is like an organism, and it has various proteins, and it has its own DNA as well. So Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it's one of the bacteria that causes tuberculosis, and it has certain proteins inside which produces a small molecule and trigger the bacteria to form a dormant form. as in it can stay inside your lungs for months to years to ages, and it will not become active till the time you do not have any other disease like HIV or any other immunodeficiency kind of disease. It will become active as soon as your immune system goes down. And once it becomes active, we all know that tuberculosis is it's a treatable disease if treated properly at the right time, but can be fatal as well. So what I was studying was this particular protein which activates this whole system inside this bacteria to make it dormant. And so it stays inside the lungs for forever. Um, Definitely. Scientifically, if I say, I would not say that I'm Watson and Crick and I figured out like a structure of DNA and still yet, or I would not say I'm Madame Curie or like the people who inspires me, like APJ Abdul Kalam and all these scientists. But I did a small contribution towards science, and which makes me really happy that because to make bigger discoveries, you have to start somewhere. You have to start learning today and to stay curious and solving these small problems, maybe which may turn out to be a bigger problem, and probably you will solve something which is groundbreaking at some particular time in your life. So it makes me hopeful, I would say. So I'm hopeful for what future has for me in science. So neurodevelopmental disorders in children. So basically the child brain cannot develop properly because there is a genetic defect. And if gene is defected, the brain cannot develop properly because it cannot make a proper protein, which is required. As I told, since childhood, I always wanted to become a neurosurgeon. And because I was not able to become a doctor of medicine or become a neurosurgeon, I thought that I can contribute to what neurosurgeons can use. So basically the research, the science behind it, so that we can develop better drugs because there are no drugs for the cure of these genetic diseases. And these are called rare genetic disorders, which are affecting around 1 to 2% of the world population at this particular time. So I wanted to do something for these children. And when I stumbled upon this particular topic, I was like, okay, nice. Finally, I'm getting to go into the neurodevelopmental and neuro side of the research. But I think apart from science, what really keeps me motivated is to create more researchers. So, and to have this kind of feeling of curiosity and tinkering, like I just want to create more curious people like me. So that really motivates me, and that is why I basically do a lot of mentoring and doing program development with other NGOs or whatever, wherever I can contribute. So if you talk about personal influences, my mom and dad, of course. So my father taught me a lot during the journey, and my mother, after my father, of course, she took charge and in all the women household, and how we have to stood the ground. And when society is telling you that you cannot do this because, and she should get married right after her BSc probably, there were so many situations where my mother fought for me, and I fought for myself at particular point where I had to convince my mother that I really need to go for further higher education, which was challenging. But because she understood my psyche, and they were the one who motivated me to do all this. So I think my mother and my father are my true inspiration. And I'm just super thankful, like wholeheartedly thankful to them. Like, thank God they raised a daughter like this, who is maybe rebellious. I don't know. One failure, my biggest failure was not clearing MBBS. It was the biggest failure. I was completely shattered at that particular moment, and I was so heartless that, and I didn't have any hope for anything. So I started, but it taught me one biggest thing, that something happens for a reason, that you have to do even bigger things than that. And probably at that particular time, I might have not known that there is another career that I would enjoy even more than becoming a doctor of medicine. And now I think today, finding these kind of challenging problems every day, which doesn't have any answer, and like these questions, and asking myself like, okay, what to do with this particular thing, and how will it turn out to be like, what does this particular protein do in a particular organism, and what is the role of this behind this particular disease? These are all intriguing questions that I ask every day, and every day is quite challenging, as in as novel and as challenging as it could be. So I think this is the best thing about being a researcher. And that is why I think doctor of medicine probably was not the career for me. I think I always wanted, or should was destined to become a scientist and not a doctor of medicine. So this is not related to my job at all. Because I was part of this when I was in school and after my father's death, there was this particular NGO that came to our school and called Udyan Care. And they used to select students from different schools who were facing financial hardship, or they, or the students were meritorious, but they are not able to like support themselves in means of finances. So they used to select these students, they used to interview and take a written exam. They came and they selected me as well as in my batch. And they selected Darshana, Dr. Darshana Joshi, who is also among another other 75 women in STEAM. So they selected her during her batch. She was my senior in my school. And she got selected, and we were Udyan Shalini sisters, basically, because we both were selected, and this was the Indian Shalini program. There we got this mentoring of the exposure from different kind of people who used to come and give sessions. And I never knew Darshana during that particular time. I knew her during my school, that she's my senior who likes to go and participate in debates a lot. So that, and I was very much active in sports. So she came to me when I moved to California. She called me that we are going to have a session on Shalini Talk, and you should speak about your story. Everybody should need to learn from you. And that is how we got connected back again in 2020 when she called me. And after that, she just proposed randomly that I'm thinking to start a program. She owns, she's a founder of Vigyanshala International NGO. And she came after Cambridge, left all her, after her PhD, left all the scientific career behind. And she wanted to start this NGO to help the marginalized from Indian community to succeed in STEM careers. So she called me and she said that we would like to start a program for women in STEM. Would you like to contribute in that? And I just moved to California, to USA at that particular time. I was in Colorado, and she was saying, I said, yes, absolutely. Like nobody ever came for this kind of thing to me. And I always wanted to pay forward in whichever way I can. This is the first thing that I could do. And please, how can I help? That day, that happened in May 2020. And I think we never looked back after that, and to this particular friendship and the professional relation that we have developed as well. In October 18, 20, on October 18th, 2020, we launched first pilot of Kalpana program. We created this program from the scratch. We co-developed together with the other team that we had of volunteers coming from all over the world. We had mentors who wanted to willingly give their time to these students. And we developed this program. We launched the first cohort of Kalpana with Udyan Shalini girls. So we wanted to give back which gave us so much, and we wanted to give back to that particular institution first. So we made sure that the pilot should be done with the Udyan Shalini program. We went there and we talked about, and Dr. Kiran Modi, who's the founder of Udyan Care, she always inspired us. She's one of my personal motivator, how she feels about the society. And at that moment, we realized that this is what girls need, and we need to show them what are the different career paths. What I didn't know, what she didn't know, Darshana didn't know, we need to tell these girls early on so that they can take an informed decision early on in their life that they could be anything if they pursue STEM, like in their high school. They did not know about so many career options are out there, and we wanted to tell them because now we know. And that is how we started Kalpana. And we did, in the beginning we had around for 66 girls in the beginning, for pilot. And then the second cohort that we had applications from thousands of girls, and we selected around 250 girls for that particular program. And we were able to, now the Kalpana 2.1 is also done. So second cohort is done. Now they are preparing for the third cohort. But I was actively involved as the program CEO there. So Darshana gave me the title. So basically, she called me. Basically, I was co-developing as well as leading and facilitating that particular program with other volunteers who were contributing their time. And during that year, I was full-time volunteering with Vigyan Shala because I didn't start my postdoctoral journey till that time. This is something that I always wanted to do again because of my personal experiences. So when I was growing up, as I told you, that computers was something that I never knew. And I never knew that I could be good at it. And I could be that good that I would won a gold medal in that. So I never knew that. That I only got to know when I was doing my master's. Nobody has to wait till that time, like to learn something like that. And over the time, I realized that wherever students are going, when they approach something, they are not basically doing anything from one particular discipline that they have learned. So if they are a biologist, microbiologist, or probably they are a chemist or physicist, they are, at the end of the day, they are challenging, solving the problems which matter to humanity and to the world. So they have to solve the problems of the climate change, but they cannot do it just by becoming an environmentalist. They have to talk about the sociological aspect of it and what is the chemistry behind bringing those molecules and changing the carbon footprint, maybe in a particular manner. So I was very passionate about the SDGs, and I really wanted to bring something that could bring all the interdisciplinary education together, where students can think interdisciplinary with an interdisciplinary mindset and not limiting themselves from a particular niche in which they have been trained or educated. And with that particular perspective, as a passion project, I just started it at that time. And I proposed this to another colleague, ex-colleague of mine, who was in ICGV India, where I was a research trainee. And she told me that, okay, I will come on board as a founder. So I found my co-founder, and I was able to go forward with BioXpace, where I'm actually promoting 21st century learning, interdisciplinary learning to the students, where they can solve the real world problems by project-based learning. So basically, I'm providing, if a chemist come to me and they do not know anything about biology, I try to frame and design a project around that so that they can get an experience about solving a biological problem from a chemistry mindset, as well as implementing the sociological aspect of it, as well as to how it can eventually help the climate or probably in healthcare. So it has to be an interdisciplinary project that they do with me and with my whole team as well. And now we have certain subject experts who are willingly available to give their time in mentoring them around wherever they have any kind of hurdles during their project. So this is something I recently started, like last year in August 2021. And I have completed the pilot of that for 5 months, and with my 17 students, with whom I did 11 interdisciplinary projects. And now I'm looking forward to the second batch. So, but the thing is, if I would say give an advice to my, like a younger self, I would say, make sure that anybody who is putting you down at any point of time and saying that you are not made for this or you cannot do this, make sure you find the right resources, take the challenge on, and if you are really determined, the universe is waiting to be explored. So basically, take the challenge and go ahead with that. I always say to my students as well, if you have the zeal, the universe is waiting to be explored, and this is something I abide by as well.